name is David. It's okay. I will be facilitating this breakout room. First, I'd like to introduce Karely, Victoria, and Alex from Silverton. They're going to be discussing foods for Osos. Bears.
Oh, this is not our project.
Okay, this is Victoria, and she's going to be pretending in Spanish because we wanted both languages to listen to our project, but she speaks Spanish and English. And I'm Karely, and I'm in 9th grade.
I'm Victoria, and I'm in 9th grade.
And I'm 100 and I'm in 9th grade.
¿Qué podemos hacer para que los osos no tiren basura? Lo que podemos hacer es crear un sistema y investigar acerca del tema de a qué hora salen los osos y así meter la basura en las casas por las noches, para evitar que se ensucie el pueblo. Otra cosa que podemos hacer es comprar botes de basura a prueba de osos para que los osos no hagan desastre con la basura.
What can we do so that the bears don't litter? What we can do is create a system and investigate about the issue of what time bears come out, and have the garbage put in the house at night to prevent bears from eating trash and littering around town. Another thing we can do is buy bear-proof trash cans so bears don't eat something unnatural and make a mess with trash around town.
What is the reason why bears go through our garbage, and what can be done to avoid this? Some strategies to avoid this problem are by cleaning your grill after using them, and then don't leave food out, and then if you have a hummingbird feeder, just put it inside at night.
¿Cuál es la razón por la que los osos tiran basura y qué se puede hacer para evitar? Lo que podemos hacer es para evitar este problema es limpiar los asadores después de usarlos y también dejar comida afuera sin que se tengan que tirar la basura para comer.
Our plan. We are going to buy trash cans that are bear-proof and easy to open. We also need to go talk to the town board and ask them where we could put the trash cans around town. We also want to plant bear poop or seeds or native berries to attract bears naturally out of town.
Queríamos comprar botes de basura a prueba de osos y fáciles de abrir y que sea complicado para los osos, como por ejemplo comprar candados para la basura suficientemente gruesos para que los osos no los rompan. También queríamos plantar excremento de oso para que atraiga a los osos fuera de la ciudad. Y por ejemplo, no siempre es en nuestros hogares, sino también en los restaurantes, y podemos implementar los mismos hacks en los restaurantes.
Some food for the bears are planted. Bears love to eat all kinds of wild berries, and if we plant bear poop, they will grow wild. They will grow berries because from the poop that the bear has eaten berries. And then some examples of native berries to Colorado are dogwood, strawberries, and choke cherries.
A los osos nos encanta comer todo tipo de bayas silvestres y pueden olerlas desde lejos. Si plantamos excremento de osos, crecerían plantas que los osos comen fuera de la ciudad y es mejor cultivar. ¿En qué épocas del año salen los osos? Los osos salen en épocas de verano, pero se ven más en otoño y empezando invierno. Salen en verano porque hay más gente en esas temporadas y salen en otoño por la comida ya que van a invernar.
The bears come out in the summer seasons, but they are seen more in fall and the beginning of winter. They come out less in the summertime because there are more people in those seasons, and they come out in the fall for food because it's time for them to hibernate in winter.
Our future is to plant those berries so we can feed the bears natural food so they don't eat the trash from our trash cans in town. And by doing this, it will lead them away from town from getting into our trash cans. We also plan to buy new trash cans that bears can't get into because we don't have a lot of bear-proof trash cans in our town. And in the summer, the restaurants don't clean after the bears leave the garbage, and it's really bad for the bears to keep eating the garbage.
Para plantar esas vallas para que podamos alimentar. A los osos haciendo esto los que afuera de la ciudad y lejos de nuestros botes de basura, y queremos comprar nuevos botes de basura en los que los osos no pueden tirar.
Thank you, and it's time for questions. We have 5 minutes.
What?
Yes.
What specific style of bear food is preferred?
I guess we don't know exactly, but it just like I guess a lot of like bear poop has seeds in it. I guess like berry seeds. Yes.
We're gonna be working on this, bear food relocation project, and they're gonna be the elected officials.
Maybe yeah, like volunteers and like the town board. Yes.
How many bear sightings do you have?
Oh, like a lot, but like out in the mountains, so not like really in town, but like around the outskirts. Yes.
So, the bears are getting in the trash, like that's documented, it's primarily like businesses or are the trash cans designed now to be like municipal, like for the town or public, or are they gonna be for homeowners?
I guess for both, because like yes, it's mostly for like the businesses, because like a lot of businesses don't have like good like trash cans, and like the bears are able to get in, and like I guess most of the time they don't care, they just leave what the bear like left, like the trash out. And I guess it would be good for homeowners too, because bears do tend to get into homeowners' trashes.
Any more questions? Oh, do you have plans to go before the town council?
Yes, we do. We want to go talk to the town board and ask them where we could put it.
I encourage you to do that, my students have done that before, it actually got some fire mitigation done in our town. I feel like the town council has had to young people proactive and they, some of the problems that they, I really encourage you to go for the town council, the same situation that we may actually split up the pot and get the actually down the streets.
Ask one more time. Any more questions? Thank you, guys. I'd like to introduce our next presenter. It is going to be, oh God, where am I? Eli from Mountain Middle. Or, sorry if I butcher anyone's names. I'm gonna say that again. Where's my phone? I think this one's one that works.
And if you want to, Ellie, you can take the last one. Sorry, it's loading.
Do you know if I'm sure you did, or else we wouldn't be able to access it. Do you know if it was like allow anyone with the link to access? Do you know? You did do that. That's
I also have permits.
try. Let's see. We might be able to do is pull it up on the phone. Just present to the audio. This would be good. Here. So what we could do is we could go through this and maybe I can try and get it. We need it on the screen. How do you feel about doing it on the phone? Be able to connect it up here, but we can also pull up pictures to go alongside. It looks like Russian Earth Tree is your first one. Maybe I can just pull up a picture. It's the Prezi. The Prezi's check. Looks like we do. For some reason, it's not playing. So you just go ahead and start on this, and I can just look up the things that.
Sounds good.
Uh, Hi, I'm Ellie Bruckbauer, and I'm going to do a presentation on naturalizing the European red fox in Australia. So there's a species called Vulpes vulpes, otherwise known as the European red fox, which is an invasive species in Australia. So much is being done to eradicate them, but what if they were just naturalized? So an invasive species is an organism that causes damage to an ecosystem where it's not native. Naturalization is when that invasive species establishes a niche within that ecosystem. So like diet, habitat, predator establishment, you get the idea. The Russian olive is an example of an invasive species here in Southwest Colorado, and it consumes 75 gallons of water per day. Naturalization usually is better than eradication because it has a lower environmental impact and it even allows for contribution to the ecosystem. So the European red fox was introduced to Australia in 1855 for recreational hunting. By the early 1870s, wild populations had established. Over the next 100 years, they had spread across the majority of Australia, mostly because they're able to reproduce at 1 year old and they have litters of 3 to 12 kids.
So the problem with the European red fox being in Australia is that they contribute to the decline of small to medium animal species, which are their main diet. And baiting often misses its target. Those solutions to that are emerging. They're also a carrier of rabies and they prey on newborn lambs. So what Australia is currently doing is shooting and trapping them, and they even have put bounties on them. They've already used 1,800 poison baits, but the naturalization solution would involve driving populations using artificial urine and feces markings, because red foxes are very territorial, and also luring them with lamb carcasses. And these desired regions would be closer together, which would result in less dominant individuals and in turn less breeding, and also towards established dingo populations, because dingoes are proven to prey on red foxes. Also, breeding programs for native rodents and birds, which are the fox's main diet, would be started, and mature adults would be released into their new habitat. And fox young would be tranquilized and vaccinated against rabies. The artificial markings would continue to be used until the fox numbers and the fox prey numbers were stable and permanent predation had been established. And then the artificial markings could stop, but breeding programs for their prey would continue, and programs to preserve their predators, dingo and possibly others, would be implemented. So the naturalization solution is by far more humane and even allows for contribution to Australia's ecosystem. It also gives dingoes new prey other than livestock, which is something farmers often complain about. And it's also more realistic than trying to eradicate these red foxes from like this entire country. And also naturalization, like it is possible. Dandelions have been naturalized across the entire US because they're consumed by wildlife and used in some medicines and foods. They are part of this country's ecosystem. The same thing could happen with red foxes in Australia. Thank you. Any questions?
What got you interested in this topic?
Well, we went on a field trip to Waterfall Ranch, and they were talking about how dandelions had been naturalized here. They just like mentioned that briefly, and I was like, oh, that sounds cool. And then I was wanting to do like a extension project, and then I figured out that red foxes were invasive in Australia. So then I'm like, well, they're pretty adorable. Nobody wants to kill those. So I'm like, well, what if they're just a better solution? So yeah.
So, the foxes, are they overpopulated and are they bringing down the population of the prey?
Yeah,
too much?
yeah, a lot. They've also caused some species to be endangered. So
What are the parallels between the Australian red fox population and the one here? Because we have red foxes, right?
yeah.
My understanding is that red foxes in the US are already naturalized,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah, so they're native here, so they're not a problem. But in Australia, since they're like not normally there, they don't have predators, like natural predators, so they were able to take over. Well, they were brought in 1855, and I believe it was probably by the British. I don't know. The article I read didn't really specify. Any other questions?
All right, thank you very much. All right, thank you again. Our last presenter for this session is going to be Evan from Durango High School, discussing the wildlife of Durango Natural Nature Center, a field guide. this one works. Oh, that one. Yeah. that one. Okay. Hi, my name is Evan Tweedie. I go to Durango High School. I'm a junior this year. I'm currently doing a project on making a field guide for the wildlife of the Durango Nature Center, which is near Bondad Hill. I don't know if anybody's been there, but used to be maintained by Durango Nature Studies until they merged with the San Juan Mountains Association over this past, over COVID. So yeah, so I'm working directly with San Juan Mountains Association to correspond the information in my field guide with some of the signs that they're planning on putting around the nature center. If you've ever been there, you'll see like very worn down ethnobotany signs on some of the plants in the area, but most of those are very outdated as far as like the plants that they're next to. So planning on remaking those, and the information in my field guide is probably going to correspond with the information in the signs. So I'm helping with that as well. So there's going to be two main steps to my project. The first is going to be handouts, which are going to be much smaller chunks of a larger edition, the definitive edition, which I'm going to include all of the information in. So section 2, well, hold on. So of course, I'll start out with an introduction in the definitive edition, a general basis on how the information is outlaid. And then I'm following the three main tenets of San Juan Mountains Association's motto: explore, learn, and protect. So in the first section on explore, I'm going to explore some of the geological history, life zones, and history of the nature center, as well as some maps for kids. So this is all geared towards children for use in San Juan Mountains Association's junior naturalist field camps over the summer. So, and then the second section is going to be all focused on all the species entries, which I'm going to separate into reptiles, amphibians, mammals, birds, fish, insects, arachnids, and other invertebrates. And then third section on protect, I'm going to focus on some of the environmental challenges that some species at the Nature Center face, and preservation, which I'm going to focus on the leave no trace principles, which we encourage a lot at the Nature Center. And then finally, I'm going to have a species list that the kids can look at, a general glossary, bibliography, and index. So then for each entry on the in the larger edition, I'm going to have a common name, the binomial name or scientific name, some subspecies, general description of the species, habitat, the niche or the role it plays in its ecosystem, so its diet and predators, some behavior, similar species, and some fun facts like local groups. And then for the handouts, they're going to be much more simple. So the first one's going to be, oh, it cut off. Okay. First one's going to be focused on reptiles, amphibians. Second one on mammals. Third one on birds and fish, and the fourth one on all invertebrates, just to condense it a little more. So these handouts, I'm planning on having multiple handouts just lying around the Nature Center that the kids can use, and then one large definitive edition on all the species, going to be much more in depth if any kids are more interested in learning about a certain animal. I'm going to separate this into an introduction, general life zones, all the species entries, of course, leave no trace principles, and a species list and glossary. And then it's going to be much shorter, just focusing on the general description and habitat, as well as a binomial name. And then these are just some example entries. This one's from the definitive edition, going to be much longer and more thorough.
And then, so this is the Gopher Snake, very common around the Durango area, very large too. So, then this is an example of what the handouts are gonna look like. Much shorter, mostly just focusing on what you see in a general field guide, physical description, and habitat. And so, but I'm planning on having all these handouts finished by the next Youth Resilience Summit. And the definitive edition is going to be much later. It's going to be more in depth. That's going to be my last priority. So, yeah, I think that's it. So, any questions?
Do we have any questions?
With the handout, are you putting on YouTube?
Yeah, reusable. Mostly, they're probably just going to be in packet form, just handouts for the kids, like sort of like the booklet we have here. Probably going to do something like that, so the kids can have it handy. Yeah. So I really want to get kids more interested in the amazing biodiversity that the Nature Center holds. And semi-riparian ecosystem. I think it's a really, really cool place that holds a lot of biodiversity, and yeah, I just really want to get kids more interested in the wildlife, and many of them already are, but I want to provide something that has all of the very specific information on the Nature Center specifically, and local groups and stuff like that, very specific to the Nature Center. I'm really interested in this topic of biodiversity and ecology. Yeah. So the Santa Mountain Association's Junior Naturalist Field Camps are mostly geared to, I think it's 5 years old to 12 years old, and then 13 years old, you can become a CIT. I've been a CIT for 3 or 4 years now. So counselor in training. So I'm hoping I'm becoming a counselor at the Nature Center next year, which I'll be able to. So.
All right, do we have any more questions?
Yeah. I'm planning on actually publishing the definitive edition. I'm planning on publishing that, and maybe getting it available in local bookstores, which would be really cool. Possibly working with planning on working with Basin Printing for publishing the field guide, or creating it, designing it, and everything. So, yeah. More questions?
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
All right, thank you.